Hi, and welcome to Full Circle. I'm Emily Wilmson with the City of Fort Collins, and today we're here to talk about recycling. And I have with me on my left here Pete Gasley, who's president of Total Facility Care. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you.
And I have Caroline Mitchell, who is an environmental planner with the Department of Environmental Services. Welcome, Caroline.
Thanks, Emily. And
we're here today to talk about the Community Recycling Ordinance. Mm-hmm. And so maybe we should first explain why Pete is here. Pete, you're a member of the advisory committee that Caroline has set up for this ordinance. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and so why don't you start by talking a little bit about what the Community Recycling Ordinance is, and then maybe we can come back to what is Pete's role and what is the advisory group.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, the impetus for this project actually started a few years ago. In 2013, the city underwent an extensive public involvement process that resulted in a plan called the Road to Zero Waste Plan, which supported goals that City Council passed at the end of 2013, which set pretty ambitious goals for our community to recycle or compost 75% of our materials by the year 2020. We're aiming for 90% by 2025 and aiming for a goal of zero waste by 2030. And before anyone panics about the term zero, we view the term zero waste much like a zero injury goal for businesses, where any material that is continuing to be landfilled will continue to be a focus for the city. We'll try and figure out other alternatives for those materials, to not use them in the first place, or other disposal options for them, but it's sort of a commitment to continuous improvement around waste reduction and recycling. So we have those goals, and in that Road to Zero Waste plan, there are a number of steps that line out how we can achieve those goals. And one of the very first projects suggested in there is what is now called the Community Recycling Ordinance Project. So the focus of this project is really twofold. One is to update our existing ordinance. Our current ordinance is called the Pay-As-You-Throw Ordinance, and that refers to making trash bills be like your water bill or like your electricity bill. The more you throw away, the more you pay, which sometimes wasn't the case previously. So in our Pay-As-You-Throw Ordinance, which has been around for over 20 years now, was passed in 1995, so I guess exactly 20 years. So part of our project is to update that existing ordinance as it applies to single-family homes. That ordinance has been updated 2 times over the years, in 2004 and 2009, just as situations change in the local economy and in the materials that we're disposing of. And we're at another one of those points right now. So we need to make some sort of continuous improvement updates to the existing ordinance. But then we're also taking this opportunity to look at what else would we like to do? What next steps is our community interested in? So in those categories, we're talking about potential organics collection, meaning primarily yard trimmings from single-family homes. And then we're also talking about, and one of the reasons Pete is involved in this project, if and how the business and multifamily sectors should be included in our ordinance also. Because again, right now it only applies to single-family homes.
Okay. And maybe we should back up a little bit and talk about how the city licenses trash haulers. How does that work? Cities don't always provide trash service. Mm-hmm. And so can you talk a little bit about that before we
Certainly.
move on? Okay.
Yeah, so here in the city of Fort Collins, all of the trash and recycling hauling is provided by the private sector. So an individual homeowner will contract with a specific trash company to come collect the trash and recycling. And same with businesses and apartment complexes. The role the city plays is both in education for all of the community, but also in setting sort of the framework through which those services happen. So any trash company that provides services in Fort Collins has to have a license, and as part of that license, they report the materials that they collect in the community, and that's how we calculate that community diversion rate. That's one of our primary metrics for what's happening in waste reduction and recycling. And the Pay-As-You-Throw Ordinance also applies again to the single-family homes, and it doesn't set the rates. The individual haulers set the rates, but what the Pay-As-You-Throw Ordinance says is that your trash bill has to be based on the volume of your trash that you subscribe to. So you can sort of consider it as a 1x, 2x, 3x pricing. So we have 32 gallons, 64 gallons, and 96 gallons of trash service that you can choose from. And if we had just a real rough example, if the smallest container were $10 a month, The medium-sized container would be $20, and the larger container would be $30 a month. But no matter which size of trash you subscribe to, recycling is included at no additional charge. So that's really the crux of the pay-as-you-throw ordinance, is the economic incentive to recycle materials. And again, that trash and recycling service and cost being bundled together.
Okay. So how is your advisory committee helping with this? And talk a little bit about Pete's role, and maybe Pete can talk about Pete's role. But who's on your advisory committee? How are they helping with this project?
Yeah, our advisory committee has been involved from the beginning of the project, and we have really a wide diversity of members on the advisory committee. We have some residents and a member of the Natural Resources Advisory Board that works here in the city on these topics. We have Pete, we have a representative from our multifamily community, we have representatives from some of our institutions in town, CSU, Poudre Valley Hospital, Poudre School District. So we have our goal was to get a really wide diversity of input and have these key members closely involved throughout the process to really help us understand the impacts of any of our options to different communities and make sure we have everybody's great ideas working together.
So we have the trash haulers who handle all the materials too, so they're a really important piece of the committee.
They are.
That's
Thank you.
good.
Yes, all three. There's 3 primary trash haulers in town, or at least 3 that service the single-family home sector, and yes, they are all 3 included in the committee. Thank you for that clarification, Pete.
So Pete, talk a little bit about your business and why you're involved in the advisory committee.
Sure. Well, mostly I'm involved because Caroline twisted my arm really hard, but I'm recovering from that. So
She does that.
yeah. I own Total Facility Care, and we do commercial cleaning and building maintenance. And I've known Susie Gordon for a number of years and have helped other businesses get to zero waste. And so I think when this came up, she thought that I might be able to add something to that. And so my team members in Fort Collins service businesses across the city, and we handle all of the waste stream in those buildings. And so I think we have kind of a unique perspective of how that happens right now.
Okay, and so how does what should businesses know about the recycling ordinance update? What are you learning? What is it that you want to convey that they should know?
Well, I think one of the main things that has changed in really the last few years is recycling used to be fairly inexpensive to do, and the commodities used to be fairly valuable, and that has flipped in the last few years. So it's actually cheaper right now to throw things away than to recycle in terms of the tipping fees. So one of the discussions has been around how do we make sure that the haulers get compensated for those types of things. And then one of the other things that has happened has it been a year and a half since the cardboard ban was put in place? So the city about a year and a half ago banned cardboard from the waste stream, and so that means every business had to figure a way to recycle cardboard. And for a lot of our smaller clients, that just meant they got a 96-gallon single stream can, and so that's actually increased some recycling, maybe not as high as we were thinking that might be, and so we're looking for some more results there. So I think that the bottom line is businesses want to do the right thing and recycle, but we obviously want to keep the economic impacts in mind as we look at changes to the ordinance.
Okay, great. And so if you're a business in Fort Collins right now, how does recycling work? And I know it's similar to multifamily, so maybe one or both of you can, if you do set up recycling through the city or through your trash hauler, how does that work? Because it isn't curbside, so to speak. So
right. So it's different than what the residential program. Commercial customers pay for trash removal, and then they also pay for recycling removal. And so it depends really on what they recycle. If they've got a lot of cardboard or they've got a lot of wood pallets or something like that, those would be handled as individual commodities typically. Or if they just have kind of a light mix of everything, then that's handled in a single stream. And there's a variety of containers and ways that can happen.
okay.
Yeah, so just a little bit that I would add from Pete's answer there is that similar to single-family homes, under the pay-as-you-throw ordinance, as Pete mentioned, the more trash you throw away as a business or as an apartment complex, the more you pay. So the company's trash bills are based both on the volume of their container and also their service frequency, because it's fairly common that larger locations will have their bin service more frequent, all of which just means, the volume of material you're getting collected. You'll pay more for more trash service. And as Pete mentioned, you pay extra for your recycling service. So the more volume of recycling you have, historically the recycling has cost less than the trash service. Again, as Pete was saying, right now we're in sort of the recyclables, they're international commodities, and just like every other commodity market, like the gas and oil and everything else in the world, commodity markets go up and down, and we're in one of those troughs right now for the value of recyclables. We're not in a situation where, recycling no longer makes sense. It's not like we're throwing recycling programs out the window, but it definitely does change. We have to make sure that our local programs are adaptable for when the recycling markets are in a good place and when the recycling markets are in a poor place like they are right now. But again, back to how the systems work. Multifamily and commercial pay extra for their trash volumes, but they don't have any particular incentive to recycle. The services are not bundled together. And the one note that I would add of why we talk about multifamily and commercial in sort of the same sentence, obviously they're different. People live in apartment complexes and condos. Right. So in that sense, they're much more similar to single family homes. But from the trash service perspective, multifamily and commercial are very similar, because at a single family home, you have typically a small plastic wheeled cart, and each individual home has their own cart that they put out at the curb for service. At an apartment complex or a business, you tend to have the large metal dumpsters that are used by multiple people or multiple employees and have a much larger volume of material and are serviced more regularly, or I guess the frequency depends. But it's a different truck often that'll service a small cart than a big dumpster. And so multifamily and commercial are serviced in the same way, and their materials go in the same truck. So even a lot of our numbers that we can report as a city are multifamily and commercial mixed together, because it's pretty hard to parse out, 30% of that truck was an apartment complex. And so that's why they get lumped together. It's just a function of how they're serviced.
Okay, so that's a good segue into a chart I know you want to discuss, which is what's the participation rate for different segments of our community, businesses versus residential. I don't know who wants to take that.
Oh, Caroline should.
Okay.
Well, the pay-as-you-throw ordinance that we passed back in 1995, Fort Collins was one of the first communities to pass a pay-as-you-throw ordinance, but it's now considered a best practice, and many communities across the country have adopted similar ordinances. And as I'd mentioned before, the crux of that ordinance is that it bundles together the service and the pricing for the trash and the recycling. And it turns out that that's a pretty strong motivator for residents to participate in recycling. So again, in Fort Collins, no one is required to recycle, but if you subscribe to trash service as a single family resident, you already get recycling service for no additional charge. And in this system, 95% of residents in Fort Collins participate in recycling, meaning that they have told their hauler they would like that recycling cart and they would like to participate in that service. By contrast, in our multifamily and commercial sectors, 68% of our apartment complexes and condos are recycling, and according to our trash haulers, all of these numbers come from the trash haulers, that reporting I referred to earlier, 48% of the businesses in this community are recycling. The numbers certainly aren't perfect. There are certainly people who can choose to collect their recycling and drive it to the city's drop-off center that aren't captured in those participation numbers, but the vast majority of folks who recycle have that service through their haulers. So, we can say those numbers they're a pretty fair gauge of the percentage of those locations that are recycling.
Okay, and Pete, is that what you've been witnessing in the community? Like you said, your business is often dealing with waste and recycling at other businesses. Do you feel like that's, 48% of the businesses you're seeing are recycling, or?
Well, I was surprised by that number. I thought it was a little low, and I think that's reflective of 2014, is that? Correct. So I think what we see with our clients is a much higher rate than that. So I think we'll see that as numbers are reported again here in 2015. I think we'll see that number go up.
Okay, and how do we get businesses more engaged in this process of updating the recycling ordinance? What are some ways we're reaching out to, I mean, obviously the business advisory group, but how are you all communicating with your peers, I guess, about this?
Well, I think the city's got a great business assistance program that probably is not that well known. So it provides, $500 worth of assistance to help with designing your recycling program in your building, and so that can be used for containers and signs and just some technical help, and the city provides that.
Okay, and Caroline, he's referring to the WRAP program. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's WRAP stands for the Waste Reduction and Recycling Assistance Program, and that was developed in 2013, and or actually maybe it was 2012, but recently.
Yes.
And the reason that specific assistance program was designed, again, was because there were no particular programs focused on multifamily and commercial. Single-family homes had that economic incentive to recycle already, and a lot of tools had been focused towards single-family, but there hadn't been a lot of focus on the multifamily and commercial sectors before. So we developed WRAP, and the WRAP provides a number of services. So if a location is interested in starting up a new program, again, either a business or an apartment complex or condo, they can receive up to $500 of rebate for the cost of their recycling service. And all the details are on our website. I won't go into all the minute details to bore everyone, but we can give up to $500 of rebate for the recycling service. And then, as Pete was mentioning, also we call it a startup cost rebate. So if you need to buy bins for inside your business, or if you need to make modifications to your enclosure, or if you want to do an education campaign with your residents, there's any of the costs that could come along with starting up a recycling program, we have a rebate to assist with those. But even potentially more important than the financial rebate is just the staff assistance that's available. I sort of joke that I can be as much help as any location wants for starting up the recycling program. I can't call the different companies, and I can't choose who their service is going to be, but beyond that, I can help the locations figure out what would a recycling program look like. And I'm sure this is a service that Pete does all the time with his clients. But figuring out roughly what percentage of your material that you're disposing of could be recycled, and where is it being generated, where should we put the bins so that they're efficient and easy to service and easy to use. And we talk a lot about education. We've got these fantastic signs that I always like to point out that help folks understand what they can recycle, and we even have these as a metal sign that can go out in the enclosures to help clarify what can go in the bin, but also help identify which bin is the recycling bin. And so we just have a wide array of tools that are available, and we just try to help out with whatever the particular needs are of that particular location.
It sounds like you're helping to spread the word about these programs to other folks. And
yeah, most of our clients want to do these kinds of things, and so those tools are a great assistance to help make that happen.
So I know the recycling ordinance is coming up. There's some public meetings occurring this month. When will the ordinance actually get to City Council, and when is a good time for people to get involved beyond these meetings that are happening early this month?
I would say get involved today and stay involved would be my recommendation.
Okay. And how do you do that?
To everyone in the community. So there are a few ways to get involved. As you mentioned, our public meetings, we will have them coming up on August 11th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Council Tree Library on the south end of town. And then the following day, August 12th, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Fort Collins Area Chamber of Commerce here downtown. We've had 4 public meetings for this project, and we will have 4. We've had 2. We'll have another 2 here, and we've tried to spread them out in different locations around the community in different times to try and help meet different schedule needs. But those public meetings will be focused on a discussion of the draft recommendation options. So about the end of this week, so again, early August, we'll have sort of a spectrum of options to consider for the community. that we can get feedback on, and they won't have all the details worked out yet. We're really trying to get a feeling for where there's energy from the community, and then we'll really start drilling more into the details. And our advisory group will of course be a great assistance with that. But our website also has a plethora of information and additional ways to get involved. So on our website, there's additional background information, and there's an online survey that we would love for folks to fill out to share their opinions about what's working in recycling and waste reduction in Fort Collins, what should we keep, and where should we be going. We'll be posting that spectrum of recommendation options towards the end of this week. And on that website, people can also sign up to receive emails to keep in the loop about the project. So we're really hoping to engage in sort of an ongoing conversation with the community, leading up to a study session that we have with City Council on October 13th.
Okay, great. So for most of the month of August, then at least people will be able to fill out this survey on the website. And so for those folks who might be watching this later in the month, so we want to reinforce that.
Whether or not you're at the public meeting, there's still plenty of ways to have your opinion be heard.
Okay, and your information is on the website. People want to contact you directly. Pete, any last thoughts from you about the recycling ordinance as we wrap up here? Any thoughts about how businesses can get involved and stay involved?
Well, I think just do what Carolyn just said. Get involved. We're updating something that's 20 years old. It's time, and so there'll be some changes. We don't really know what that's going to look like yet, and so make sure your voice is heard. I think that's the most important thing, and hopefully we'll see something that's a good improvement over what we're doing now.
Okay, great. Any last thoughts from you, Caroline, before we wrap up?
Just that we really, recycling, it's a day-to-day activity that everyone engages in, whether you're choosing to throw something in the trash or you're choosing to recycle something. And we know that this is a project that impacts every single person every single day. So the input from the community is hugely important, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see where, sort of along the spectrum of different options, the community feels that we're ready to be. And so I just really look forward to continuing with the process. And again, we've got around half of the residents in Fort Collins live in some sort of multifamily housing, and so it's also really important to us to make sure that there's some sort of parity depending on, if you are a renter or if you live in a single family home, that you don't have really disparate options just depending on where you happen to live. So that's one of the other components of this project that we hadn't quite mentioned before, but there are lots of reasons for all different sectors to be involved, and we're just excited to move through the process.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Full Circle.